So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I got retained as a copper in one of the big four companies here in Nigeria. Hello everyone and welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Brother Olabisi. If you're here for the first time, I'll need you to smash that subscribe button, okay? It really helps my channel to grow. So today I'm going to be talking to you about how to get retained as a copper in your PPA. I know this is like one of the most important things for core members because as opposed to going to apply for graduate training roles and just going through a whole different application process entirely, it's just easier for you to get retained as a copper at your place of primary assignment. So I'm going to walk you through the things that I did personally to get retained as a copper. So I think there are some things that is applicable to everybody and there are some things that are very specific to the organization that you're working with. So I'm just going to discuss the things that are generally applicable to everybody. I think the first and the most important thing for you to know as a core member in your place of primary assignment is you have to find out if your company retains coppers. I think that's the first thing that you need to do because it's easier for you to get retained if they have a track record of actually retaining core members. So the first thing you want to do is you want to speak to people who are in the organization and you want to ask that, do this organization actually retain coppers? Or are there any coppers here who has been retained? I think those are the people in the best position to actually answer your questions. After you've gotten this information and you know whether they retain coppers or not, if they do not retain coppers, you need to start thinking about other places that you want to apply to or other organizations that you're interested in working in. So you know that maybe like some 3 months to finishing your NYSC, you start to apply to other organizations, right? So if they do retain coppers, the next thing for you to do is to find out what metrics that they use for retainment. So you need to ask questions like, is it performance based? Do you need to write an aptitude test or are you going to do an interview? So if it's a case where it's performance based, you need to make sure you're asking the right questions. What are the metrics? Which means that what are the things that they're actually looking at to determine whether you get retained or not? Are they looking at the quality of your work? Are they looking at how well you work with others? Is it in terms of collaboration skills? Is it in terms of your interpersonal skills? So if it's a case where it's an aptitude test, you need to ask what kind of aptitude test. Is it GMAT based? Is it case study? And things like that. And if it's a case where it's an interview, you need to ask that, what kind of questions do they ask? What are the things you need to prepare for and look out for? Just make sure you're asking the right questions so you can get the right information to prepare you. Once you have this information, it just helps you to prepare. So in a case where it is performance based, you know that you have to pay close attention to the quality of your work. You need to pay attention to details and you need to know that you can't be nonchalant. You know that you actually can't afford to do the bare minimum of the job because you actually want to get retained. So moving on to the third thing on my list is that you have to actually build relationships. It's so important. I think personally for me, in my own journey of getting retained, I think relationships were like the most pivotal or they were the most important. They made the most impact on my journey personally because you need to have people. You need to build relationships. So it's not okay for you to just know people in your team. You need to make sure that you are starting conversations with people in the elevator, in the hallway, in the cafeteria, anywhere. Just start conversations with people. Really, you don't even necessarily have to have the motive of you want to get some information. Just make sure you are starting conversations with people. You are saying hi to them. There's nothing wrong with that. Just do that. It's not that difficult. Just say hi, say good morning, how are you doing. It's actually quite simple. Speak to people in HR, speak to people in IT, speak to people in marketing, speak to people in different divisions, people that you come across at work. Say hi to them, be a pleasant person, be an approachable person, right? Because these relationships are how you get information, right? There's some information that you don't necessarily have access to and it's because you don't have relationships with people. Say for example, information like what is your performance review based on, information like when are you actually going to write an aptitude test, information like when are you going to get feedback on your interview, information like what kind of questions do they ask in interviews, for example. So these are the kind of questions that people in other units can actually help you with. That maybe someone in your team do not necessarily know how it works, especially in HR. I know that people do not necessarily like HR. They have this prejudice against people working in HR. I actually work in HR and we are nice people, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. Anyways, that's a side. So you need to actually build relationships with people in HR. You need to jettison that prejudice against people working in HR because actually they're the best position to actually give you information because they're the ones actually handling your recruitment process, right? So just speak to someone in HR, ask them questions. And personally, I like to get my information from HR as opposed to just rumors or just information from any other place because once information passes from one mouth to another, the quality of that information reduces, right? So I like to go to the horse's mouth. Also matter in this instance with HR, so it could be literally anybody in HR, it could be someone on your level who works in HR. Just ask them information so that you can get the information as it is, not the remixed version or the watered down version, right? So build relationships at work, very important. So my fourth tip is that you need to learn to advocate for yourself, right? I think now this is 2023, everybody knows that it's not okay for you to just keep your head down somewhere and do your work and expect that your work will speak for you. That is not enough. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to also speak about the work that you're doing. So it's not okay for you to just make impact and think, okay, that's all there is to it. You actually have to speak about the impact that you're making. You have to speak about the growth that you're driving in your team or your unit, right? So you need to advocate for yourself. Speak up. Let people know that, okay, this is what you're doing. So just make sure that you're not hiding somewhere or you're working somewhere where nobody's going to see you. Be in the center. Be where people will see you. Make sure you're advocating for yourself. Make sure that you're doing the work and you're also speaking about the work that you're doing, because you'll be surprised. These are the things that will actually go into your performance review. If you're advocating for yourself, that way there are a lot of people who actually know that, okay, Rhoda is doing this or Rhoda has done this. That way they can actually speak to the quality of your work and the value that you actually bring to the team, and you'll be surprised that these things actually do matter in performance reviews and things like that. And these are things that come into play when they are trying to determine whether they want to retain this person or not. So just a recap, the 4 things that I think are the most important things to pay attention to when you're trying to get retained in your PPA is: number 1, you have to ask or you have to know whether your company usually retain corpers, right? So if it's something that they've never done before, you could read the exception. So in that case, you know that, okay, you have to actually walk extra mile. You have to ask questions like, what do I need to do to actually make a difference? You need to know what the measure of success is really, so that you can exceed the measure of success, so that there can be an exception in your case in terms of retaining core members. That's first thing. You need to know whether they retain core members. Number 2, you need to find out the metrics for retainment. You need to ask, how do they retain corpers? If it is via your performance review, if it's an aptitude test, or if it's an interview, you need to ask those kind of questions. Number 3, you need to build relationships at work. Very important, cannot be overemphasized. You need to know people at work that you can ask about information, and people who can even advocate for you, really. Number 4, you need to advocate for yourself. Speak about the work you are doing. So I think if you can pay attention to these 4 tips, really, you should be able to get retained, except something happens that is totally out of your control. But this is like the best way to position yourself or to prepare yourself to get retained as a core member in your place of primary assignment. So I hope you've been able to get some value from this video. Do not forget to smash that subscribe button. Also drop suggestions in the comment section on the type of videos you'd like to see on this channel, and also give this video a thumbs up.